Now to one of our favorite analysts of the Iran war here. Given that President Trump said the military campaign against Iran will be continued, he talked about it in a social post. He talked about Chinese leader Xi Jinping and the status quo. So let's bring in now that analyst I mentioned, Danny Citrinowicz, joining us from Tel Aviv, Israel. And Danny, there were some interesting comments today via the president that the Chinese president, Xi, wants to help the U.S. with Iran, wants Iran not to have a nuclear weapon, wants the Strait of Hormuz to be open and free. So do we take him at his word, Danny, or is it going to be a little more complicated than that?
Hi, Jonathan. Good morning from Tel Aviv. It's going to be very complicated. China, in general terms, have no interest to help the U.S. in the war against Iran. It has an interest to preserve the Iranian regime because in a strategic competition against U.S. in the future, it needs to have an anti-Western regime in Iran itself. I'm sure that China has no interest that Iran will have nuclear weapons, and they want to see the Hormuz Straits open, but they don't have the intention of influencing or pressuring the Iranians to do so. So I think that President Trump will have to solve the Iranian issue by itself and not by using Xi or China, because I don't think they will come for his help.
And Danny, you made the very good point that while Iran has said that, according to the president, that they will not give weapons to Iran, they do give a lot of material which they wouldn't necessarily classify as weapons. It would be dual-use material, which are used to make those weapons. So you could say one thing on the one hand while doing something completely different that does allow Iran to continue stockpiling weapons.
Definitely, you're absolutely right. We have to remember that the Iranian missile capacity is an indigenous one, meaning that they are producing their own missiles, but they are depending on China's chemicals. Now, when you're asking the Chinese decision makers, they will say it's a dual use. It goes for the civilian use in Iran itself and not for the military side of things. And you cannot, of course, prove that. And I have a sense that they will continue doing so. China has a basic interest that Iran will be strong. Yes, it has also interest in preserving relations with Saudi Arabia and UAE, but basically there is ideological connection between the both countries in countering the West. So I really think that where they can help in the future, I think that China will continue supporting the Islamic Republic of Iran because it has a basic interest that it will flourish and prevail towards the future.
Danny, how closely has this summit been watched in Israel? How important does the Israeli government think that this is vis-a-vis Israel's situation right now?
Well, definitely we're looking very closely about the summit itself because we believe in Israel that this campaign returning back to a decision point again. President Trump will have to decide whether to return back using force or trying to reach again some sort of an agreement with Iran. And I think that we assume that what's happening in China will help him make this decision, whether he can think that maybe the Chinese can pressuring Iran to continue this kind of negotiations. So there will be postponement in the decision to return back to kinetic activities or not. But I really think that we are on the decision point again. The Iranians show no willingness to compromise regarding the president request. So I think the president will have to return back and think whether using kinetics again will help him capitalize Iran. I don't think it will happen, but definitely it's a crucial point in the campaign between U.S. and Iran.
And would I be right in feeling, Danny, that Prime Minister Netanyahu would like to see a return to kinetic activity because he believes there needs to be more of that to break the Iranian regime?
Definitely, you're absolutely right. First and foremost, Prime Minister Netanyahu does not want to see an agreement between Iran and the U.S., because any agreement will strengthen the same regime that Israel seeks to topple. So I don't think that Israel will support any agreement regardless of the conditions of the agreement itself. So Israel is hoping for no agreement than a bad agreement. But I think that even more than that, Israel is hoping returning back to war, but not something specific or contained. Israel is interested in hitting the energy facilities in Iran, actually preventing Iran from being a strategic threat for Israel in the future. So I think that Israel is trying to push behind the scene U.S. To prevent that from being happen.
Danny Citrinowicz, it is always an honour and an education to talk to you, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and once again to our audience.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.